Let's talk now with Ari Friedman. He's a partner at Wisner Baum, the law firm. He's an attorney who's leading a lawsuit on behalf of hundreds of families. Well, in the past, he led lawsuits from those families in the 2018 Camp Fire, the 2018 Woolsey Fire, and now he's filing against SoCal Edison, substantially blaming them for the Eaton Altadena fire. It's been filed in L.A. County Court. Let's get Ari on. Ari Friedman, welcome.
John, thank you for having me.
Well, explain the nature of the lawsuit here. What are you alleging against Southern California Edison?
Essentially that they negligently maintained their grid and their equipment. I think we've all seen the videos and the photos of the fire starting underneath one of its high transmission towers. And as the days have passed, more and more evidence has come out that tower apparently was not de-energized. And during the wind event was being impacted by debris, causing sparks to start the initial flames. So we want to do everything we can to dig down and get to the bottom of exactly why this fire started and how it could have happened in light of everything that was going on at the time.
And just like in the Palisades case, the National Weather Service put out extreme fire warnings. It was their highest level of a warning they could possibly issue, and it was 5 days in advance of these fires. What I don't understand. Why didn't Edison de-energize the lines?
You know, that's a great question, and one of the things we're going to be zeroing in on in this lawsuit. There was some early indication from Edison. You know, their line has shifted a little bit in these last weeks from the tower being de-energized to then the tower not being de-energized to then saying that their wind measurements near this tower didn't cross the threshold, which would necessitate a shutoff. So that's why it wasn't de-energized at the time. Again, we're going to have to really drill down during the litigation to find out whether or not these policies and procedures were sufficient and whether or not the winds near this tower were actually what Edison said they were. But regardless, I think we can all agree whatever was in place at the time was not sufficient.
Yeah, whether it met their criteria or not, if it didn't, their criteria screwed up because clearly the winds were strong enough to create a huge disaster.
That's exactly right. And that's one of the things that's really maddening about this was in an event such as we had, in early January, why are we even in the first instance parsing things out so specifically and not just taking preemptive measures to ensure the community's safety?
Were they claiming that their threshold was 60 miles an hour, but the wind speeds only hit 59? Was that this particular case?
I don't have the publication in front of me, but I believe it was something just like that, John. It was that, they have a certain threshold and the winds didn't cross it. And I believe it was just a matter of a few degrees.
Yeah, it hit 59 instead of 60, because I heard that repeated several times in various newscasts. And I thought that's insane. But, of course, all of this is insane. Now, was Edison involved in these other lawsuits that you filed years ago?
Yeah, so Edison was involved in both the Thomas and Woolsey fires because Edison, as some people may not be aware of, Edison essentially has a monopoly over a certain geographic territory to sell their utilities. So, up north, for example, that would have been PG&E's territory. But no, Edison was involved in Thomas and Woolsey in 2017 and 18.
Those fires, they had not maintained their electrical infrastructure. This is according to your lawsuits. Aging equipment, overgrown vegetation, inadequate safeguards during high-risk weather. We've got this all over again now in the Eaton fire in Altadena. Why won't these companies do the basics here? I mean, I've never seen such stubborn executives. They make the same deadly mistakes over and over again.
There's a lot of reasons that go into that, John. I think people are surprised to learn that Edison is a for-profit company that might have an incentive to run their equipment to failure and maybe not keep up to date on the most efficient methods of delivering power if it can cut into profits. That's part of what the lawsuit is going to be looking at, the extent that Edison made these decisions to put the profits over the safety of the community.
But in the end, these companies get bankrupted for all the liability they created.
Well, bankruptcy, is not necessarily what a lot of people understand bankruptcy to mean in the corporate sense, because if their liabilities exceed their assets or potential to earn income, then they can essentially restructure themselves to provide some compensation to the victims while continuing to go on and do business, which is what we saw happen coming out of the North Bay and Camp Fires with PG&E. But again, at the end of the day, the first step is to make sure that companies are protecting our communities before they decide how much profit they're going to make in their efforts to do so.
Is there any way to force them to? Because, this has been going on for most of the last decade. And the fires seem to be getting more disastrous, more deadly, more homes being burned. And so for all the sanctions against these companies and lawsuits won and charges filed and sometimes executives cleaned out, if you keep getting the same result in the end, something more drastic has to be done here.
That's right. And unfortunately, there's only so much we can do on the litigation front, being the lawyers pushing back against this type of behavior. It really needs to be a much more coordinated effort, both at the legislative level and the grassroots level of people in the community, putting pressure on the representatives to ensure that changes are actually impacting the situations that people are facing, especially in these shoulder communities that brush up against nature like we have over Pasadena.
All right. Well, Ari, keep in touch with us as this progresses, because I don't want any of these stories to get lost in the memory hole.
I agree, John, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Ari Friedman with Wisnerbaum, and this law firm has filed a suit in L.A. County Superior Court against SoCal Edison. Again, neglect, mismanagement. They did not de-energize the electrical lines in the Altadena area. And just another sad, sick chapter with executives who don't care how many people they kill, how many thousands of homes are burned. They never change any of their policies. God forbid they put these power lines below ground like they should be. It's just incredible that we're doing the same story year after year after year. And the same companies are causing all this massive damage.